So, welcome aspirants, good morning. Today we will be discussing about Samachar Manthan week 23, the Polity, International Relations, Art and Culture and Modern History portions. So, online students can also comment uh, that whether I am streaming live and whether the audio is also fine, that's also working. So, before that, what did you read in the last weeks? The first class, alright. Okay. Okay. We'll come to the revision part later on. But right now, let's discuss first with the topic of the week. So, what is the topic of the week this year? This particular week in week 23. This is India and Qatar relationship. Hello, good morning. So, in India and Qatar, you might have heard of the news that okay, there are these former Navy personnel who have been implicated, and there's this Qatar authorities who have sentenced them to death penalty for charges for spying for Israel. But now, before that, we should first of all understand about the geography of Qatar itself and a little bit about the geography of West Asia because the mapping portions are crucial for the exam. So. How many of us have actually earlier also have preferred or have read about or have done the mapping of West Asia portions, particularly the portions which come up in exam? So have we done the mapping earlier? Okay, in what context? Online students can also comment. Okay, in the context of Israel and Jordan we did the mapping. Okay, that portion is fine. All right. And about the Gulf, Arabian Gulf and all? That portions, okay, around the Mediterranean Sea. But because Qatar has been in news for this week, we should also do the West Asian portions with respect to the mapping portions. So, as we can see from the map here, uh, this is the map of the Arabian Gulf. Now, here you might be aware this is Saudi Arabia, this is Oman, this is Yemen, this is Qatar, and then there is this Bahrain. So, the idea is that in this peninsula, in this Gulf region, what happens is that there is a little bit difference between what Saudi Arabia thinks, how it functions, and what is the geography of these, and what is the thinking of these countries, which are on the sidelines. Because like this is the elevation sort of thing for the same region. Now here, what is there? There is this shield region, and then it is the height is slightly declining to this region, and then we have the Yemen and Oman portions. If you'll see it on the map of monsoon, then you will discover that this entire is a desert region, but this part, Yemen and Oman, they come under the influence of southeast trade winds. Southeast trade winds are which type of winds? What do southeast trade winds bring up in India? Monsoon. All right. So the monsoon little bit comes up in these regions. Yes, not southwest. I think, yeah, southwest exact. Actually southeast, but then they deflect towards the west. So it's southeast, but then they are deflected because of the Coriolis force. So that is there. So now what will be there? The portions here, they will be different from here because this is the entire desert region, and this the influence there's the influence of monsoon still. Why is it so that the Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, they are comparatively richer, they are comparatively more influential than the countries like Yemen and Oman? Why is it so? Online students can also comment. The presence of oil, of course, that there's more presence of oil in this region beneath. How does crude oil form up? Fossil fuels, that's there, but why crude oil is formed in this region of the world? As in, okay, it is, I assume that it is random, but for online students, what also I would like to ask, why, how does crude oil form up? How is the formation of oil different than coal? How does coal form up? Yes. So what will happen? The living vegetation the vegetation matter that will get submerged under the earth, and then that will decompose, and then we'll have the coal. What will be with oil, petroleum, which we find? This will not be a vegetation matter. This is living dead matter, but that is animal in nature. The organic itself, but that gets submerged under the sea, and then we are discovering oil. So there are multiple such oil regions here, but still there is also the presence of natural gas here around Qatar. And why is natural gas present here? Marine deposits, oil, yes, right, that's right. So why does natural gas is formed here, and how Qatar is different from other countries? Because this Gulf, this is endowed with oil reserves, but this part, along with this part, the Persian Gulf, here we are having the natural gas deposits. Now, what is the compulsion here for Qatar? If we are having natural gas deposits, and if that is in commonality with the Persian Gulf, what will happen? The Qatari authorities and the policymakers there, what they'll think, that they should have different policies than the Gulf region here, because they have to somehow coordinate with Iran. If they'll not coordinate, they'll not be able to jointly explore this natural gas region. Right? So that is why we generally observe in the world sphere, in the global politics also, that the policies of Qatar are very different than the rest of the Gulf. Now, how does it impact? How does it impact Indian relations? Why does India want natural gas? Now, again, a basic question for online students also. What is the difference between natural gas and crude oil? How natural gas is a better option in present times? Eco-friendly. How is it eco-friendly? Methane, but I think fracking we generally see in terms of shale gas. That's different. Okay. How is the burning? It is cleaner. Cleaner, okay, it is more clear. But can you just specify how it is more cleaner in terms of what? So, less carbon dioxide emissions basically. All right. So, the idea is that it consists of methane. Now, methane, if you look, if methane is released in the atmosphere compared to CO2, it has a much higher global warming potential compared to CO2. But still, here what is happening? This methane gas that is compressed. Now, as per a single carbon atom, there are 4 hydrogen atoms here. And if you see the crude oil, generally crude oils are of different types, like long carbon chains, aromatic types, the closed benzene rings, or so on and so forth. The simple idea to remember is that the hydrogen ratio is not that much. The hydrogen is not that much here. Now I'll connect it to some other topic just to memorize, just so that we are just able to memorize it. Fewer emissions, less pollution, yes, that's right. So for memorizing purpose, just try to connect it to the hydrogen part. That are we having a green hydrogen or national hydrogen mission in India? Why do we have that? Why do we want to have energy from hydrogen rather than from carbon? That's cleaner. Burning of hydrogen, like interaction of hydrogen and oxygen to create water and electricity, is first of all giving us more calorific value. That is why we are planning to ensure that we use it in heavier vehicles. Okay, that is there. And apart from that, because it is the output is simply your electricity and water, will that create carbon emissions? Will that create environmental problems? In the output it will not create. If it is in the generation of hydrogen, if that is, or if the electrolysis process is done with the conventional coal based energy, that can be there, but there also we have options, blue and green hydrogen. So the idea is that hydrogen in burning is more efficient than carbon. So what will be here? In CH4 also, hydrogen will be more efficient than burning in carbon. More hydrogen means more efficiency. Calorific value of CNG, that will be more. Generally, the natural gas, that is more compared to crude oil. Although it is a gas, that is why what happens is that the overall value we get in terms of heat output when we use it in vehicles, that is less. That is why you might have seen in your cars that, when you have to provide high acceleration, then CNG creates problems. Like when we use the vehicles on, just on bridges and all, we have to have a long, for a while we have to have acceleration. That it creates a problem, but then still, it's a cleaner fuel, less carbon dioxide emission. Simply hydrogen will burn up with oxygen. There will be water. Less problems. So that is why we are preferring CNG. And because India is dependent on Qatar for 40-50% of its CNG, that is why what will happen? We'll have to cooperate. Now, is that a viable position for India? 4 types of hydrogen ozone bonding. All right. 4 types of hydrogen. Yes, that's right. I'll also cover it some other day. Yes. Yes, that's right. Hmm. Australia, right. Yes. Yes. So we can also import natural gas from Australia because after Qatar, Australia is the biggest supplier of natural gas. Apart from that, which are the geographies where we found natural gas? Russia, but there is Russia-Ukraine war. That is why there is more dependence rather. That has complicated the problem further. There is in Persian Gulf, Iran and Qatar, both of them share the common resources. But Iran is enjoying the US sanctions. They might have to some extent beneath the Arctic Sea, but there is still this concern of melting of the Arctic ice that is there. Venezuela, I think oil we find more primarily. They have, but they primarily are focusing on shale gas reserves, on the fracking process which we discussed. So now what is there is that that means for summary there are concerns that in in Russia there is this Russia-Ukraine war. In Arctic, if we go for natural gas, then still there has to be a lot of melting of Arctic ice, and that will also create global warming potential. In US and Canada, they are focusing on shale gas reserves, but there are other countries also. Like we had Africa. In Africa, natural gas, India is also exploring the natural gas options in Mozambique also. And that has also complicated the situation further. Why? Because if the Qatari authorities feel that we are expanding our base of natural gas and we are diversifying our energy security, will they be comfortable with that? So they are not simply they are not comfortable with. That is why there is this reason for what is happening right now. First is this calculation overall that okay, Indians are dependent, but they are expanding, they are diversifying. That means we can have some hold here. And apart from that, the Israel-Hamas war, of course. How is it related to the implication of the ex-Navy officials here? That is there. But what is the interest of Qatar here as a geopolitical actor in West Asia? Because when we see Qatar, we see more conservatism of the Wahhabi type, Wahhabi Islam type, compared to even the Saudi Arabia and other countries. If we see the Arab Spring happened around a decade ago, there were protests and this instability in Egypt, Libya, Syria, entire Middle East together. How many of you remember this thing? So the idea is that at that point of time also, what was happening? Qatar as a country was supposed, it was alleged, and there were proofs that it was supporting Muslim organizations and it was trying to create instability in these countries. And it has good links with Muslim Brotherhood. So they have this conservative sort of policy which they follow. And that is why they have often given statements in strong favor of Palestinians and against the Israeli authorities. Now, what might be their interest here in case of India? Maybe some leverage that, okay, let us implicate these officials, let us have some diplomatic pressure with respect to India's stand on Israel-Hamas war. Right, right, right. Huh, huh, huh. Yes, yes, yes. That's right. That's right. Al Jazeera, right. Huh. Right, right. Exactly, exactly. So now what is happening is that there is an entire history to it, that Qatar follows a different policy than rest of the Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries. What is that difference? Since coming of Sheikh Hamad Al Thani in 1990s as the new king after the coup, what happened? They decided that we should have a different policy. What type of policies? They should have their own leverage, their own stand in different matters. Like the other countries have stopped supporting, directly, indirectly, the Al Qaeda, Taliban, and so on and so forth. But Qatar still believes, and Qatar still supports Muslim Brotherhood, which is sort of an instability creator in Middle East. Likewise, Qatar has its own positions and has its own instruments of creating its soft power. What are those instruments? Al Jazeera media outlet, that is the biggest instrument of soft power for Qatar, and that is why Saudi Arabia had problems. So it had boycotted Qatar in 2017. All right, but then they suddenly, because of their calculations overall, they realized that they have problems with Iran also, and at that point of time, US, with problems with coming up of Donald Trump, he was receding from West Asia, so problems with US also. So that is why suddenly around 2020, again the entire Gulf region, they decided to resume the ties with Qatar. And how can you see that there are multiple issues in India Qatar apart from this implication of ex-Navy personnel? There had been earlier also issues. Like, you remember Nupur Sharma case, which was there. What was this case about? It was related to some hate speech. What exactly was that hate speech? Some hate speech about. So at that time also, Qatar had tried to put a lot of pressure on India publicly, that you try to handle this situation and so on and so forth. And after that, this person who gave the statement, Nupur Sharma, she was sacked. So there have been some problems overall. Now, in this, can we a little bit discuss the mapping part further? Can I ask about some apart from the, because we have already discussed the oil and the natural gas reserves, that part we have discussed. But apart from that, and apart from the fact that we have discussed that, okay, the geography here is a little bit different than here, can I ask that where are the key important geographies here? Where are the key important locations here? Have you heard of some deserts like Rubal Khali? This is the biggest desert in Saudi Arabia. This you should remember. Because of the Israel-Hamas issue, there are multiple key terms in news which have been covered in newspapers. So you can also comment, online students can also comment if they come up with any such term. So I'll clarify that further. So in Israel-Hamas context, because it's happening here around Gaza Strip, and just south to it, once we discuss this Negev desert, I think in the last classes we had discussed this Negev desert. Here there are some tribes. There is this Bedouin tribe which is in news. They live here apart from in Africa also. Bedouin tribes also live here in this part of the world. So they are also in news. Why? Because the Israeli authorities, they have helped settle these Bedouin tribes for generations. After setting up of Israel, the Bedouin tribes had started settling right since the Ottoman era, the late time periods of Ottoman era, like 17th, 18th century. After that, what happened when Israel formed? They collaborated with these tribes, and these tribes have helped the Israeli authorities with the conflicts with Palestinians in multiple conflicts and multiple wars. Like we had 6 days war. At that time also these tribes had helped, and so on and so forth. So what is the region associated here? Negev desert. That is the reason. These are the two deserts we can associate with. Specifically about Qatar and this part here. You can see that there is still a little bit elevation here in this part. Negev desert. Negev desert. Alright. So why is there is some elevation here? Because if this is suppose a high altitude area and there is this sloping down here, then suddenly this is again rising. What could be the reasons? Can you think of something here? Any geographical reason or geomorphology? Boundaries? Online students can also comment. What could be the fact that this is suddenly elevating here? Volcanic eruptions, yes, volcanic eruptions in this entire region. There have been volcanic eruptions. This is the place where volcanic eruptions used to happen. But now all the volcanoes have that magma is not coming out. That has extinct. Look at the region here. Have you heard of the mountains called Elbrus and Zagros? These are in Iran. There are these mountains. What happens with these mountains? What will happen to the tectonic plate? No, the idea is not exactly related to tectonic plate. So, but yeah, good attempts. So, what happens if there is a landmass and then suddenly there are these two mountains which are uplifting this landmass? I mean, there is this landmass which is between these two mountains. I have already given the hint, I think. What will happen to this entire region? This will be getting uplifted. This happens in multiple parts of the world. There is this intermountain plateau which forms. Oh, all right. We have read this in geography that if there are two mountain chains, then what will happen to the landmass between it? Intermountain plateau, it will be uplifted, plateau will be formed. That is why there is this elevated area, and this region is nothing but the southern extension of the mountain here of Iran. That is there. So this is there. Now we'll just convergence of plates. No, this is related to intermountain plateau, but okay, that's okay. Nice attempts. Keep answering. So this is there. Now I would like to ask about the issue. Online students can also comment. What is the issue here which has happened? Okay, there is implication of ex-Navy officials here on the charges of Israel. That is we discussed. What are the options available to India now? Yeah, it looks like a tabletop. Royal pardon. Basically, there is this chance of royal pardon because festival season is coming up there, and at that point of time, royal pardons are common. So that is the option. Apart from that, we can also go to the International Court of Justice, saying that there have been some violation of the Geneva Convention or diplomatic. But I don't think we'll do that. Why? Because we have the dependence of natural gas. Till 2030, we want to diversify and we want to use natural gas to the extent of 15% of our total energy mix. Right now it is around 6%, almost more than doubling. So we will not use that. Apart from that, what are the options? Can we bring in US? Espionage, diplomatic talk, yes, that is right. Okay. How can we bring in US? Because Qatar is influenced by US, that is right. But if we see the policies, as I said, they follow the conservative Wahhabi policy compared to the neighbors. Also, they have different. Saudi Arabia already has a little bit strained relationships with Qatar right since that 2017 controversy. Issues are, relations are going on. but it's not that they have very good relations. Yes, that is right. So, because Qatar follows a different policy, now what is the difference with the rest of the Gulf countries? Qatar is seeking attention and a clear cut stand of India. Okay. Attention, I would say they have their own geopolitical calculations. Countries often try to have their geopolitics at upper hand rather than just seeking attention. But yeah, so what is there is that because Qatari authorities, their mindset is different. So compared to the rest of the countries like Saudi Arabia, it will never allow the American soldiers on foot, have a base in Saudi Arabia. But what Qatar has done is that it has for its geostrategic reasons to become the hub of sort of security in the Middle East and to have good relations with US, they have allowed US to set up a base in Doha itself. And that is the only base really on ground which USA has in this Gulf countries and West Asia overall. So that is why USA also has a good working relationship with Qatar. You might have observed during this in the news itself that we had this releasing of hostages from the Hamas side to Israel. US at that point of time was thanking the Qatar authorities. Why? Because Qatar was the only country who could have mediation here, who could negotiate. Why? Because it is on sort of both the sides. We can easily compare it to India. India doesn't ally with either of the sides generally. Earlier we had non-alignment. Now we take stance, but that is also based on our own calculated interest. But Qatar also sort of doesn't really, we can't really bucket it in one side. That it is to the side of the Gulf countries, or it is to the side of USA, or it is to the side of Iran. It has a working relationship with Taliban also. It hosts the largest people in Hamas also. It has a good relationship with USA also. It has a working relationship with Saudis also. So they are the sort of mediator, if we say. Regarding US and Taliban, also multiple mediation talks happen in Doha. So Doha has become the hub of hospitality for everyone. Yes, that is there because India doesn't do that. So just that the policies of Qatar is also to keep talking with everyone. It's just that. India has a different stand because we had different security interests. So that is why we realized that we can't really differentiate between any sort of terrorism, and we don't negotiate with terrorism. Till long time, just a few years back, like 1 or 2 years back, till that time period also, we were having no negotiations policy with Taliban. No talks with terrorism. Qatar is slightly different here, but if we see their alignment, there also we can't really clarify, like categorize them into one sort of that. uh, that is there, and in fact, because US has its own compulsions because of their base inside Doha, so they also don't really track down upon it. So we can say that US also has double standards as usual. It can. Yes, to Qatar we can turn up. We can turn up. But I don't think that India will do that, because its public stand from a lot of years is that no, zero tolerance policy towards terrorism. So that is why generally India is not seen. Even if talks are there, they are not generally they. I don't think that they'll be made public because of they might be having some back channel talks, but not in public. I don't know. And that can stretch like Russia-Ukraine war, or although I don't think that that could stretch because Hamas is not having that much of capacity. Until and unless Americans are on the side of Israelis, they'll not really they'll just be troublemakers. Okay, all right. So we'll switch off the live section now. So what are the conclusions here? Conclusions are to ensure that India further diversifies it in its energy basket, natural energy gas, sources, so that we are not dependent on one country. We should pursue diplomatic options, talks with the US also, and to Qatari authorities also, try for royal pardon also, so that there is some solution to this situation and the Navy personnel are returned back home safely. And this is also one example we can mention about it in the mains exam also. Iran, yes, we can utilize it, but India's relations with Iran are also a little bit in cold storage right now. That is still difficult because India had put its eggs clearly in one basket when it launched the, this Middle East corridor new spice route. Mhm. Yes, because the if you see there is this little bit influence of ideology here. Apart from the natural gas reserves and apart from the access to Central Asia, Iran is not really that important as Russia. Iran is not our major defense supplier. So first of all, there is difference for online students. I'll just repeat the doubt itself, that why do we not take a rigid stance vis-a-vis US for Iran the way we do with Russia, like the way we do with Russia, that okay, we'll still import S-400, we'll still import oil, but with Iran, why don't we do that? Because Iran is not that geostrategically important for India compared to Russia. For Iran will not, disturb our relationship with the United States, which is also a major defense supplier for India after the Russians. US also we have a significant trade, and Iranian economy, Iran's system entirely is in trouble because of the long sanctions, because of the Khomeini regime, the authoritarian theocracy there. So that is why we don't think that apart from the this natural gas and oil and the access towards Central Asia and Europe, Iran has much to offer. So that is why the case of Iran and Russia is different. Yes, the relationship can be, we can a little bit assert, but when the Americans actually put pressure on us, we always side with the Americans. And Iranian diplomats have also said this, that India's Qibla is towards the US. So, Chabar port, yes, but now that lies in tatters. Chabar port also, that lies in tatters. There's no news for Chabar port also, because then just near to the Chabar port, Iran tried to give some access to China, and now there is this angle of China also, because China is also allied with Iran to a great extent, as we can see presently in Israel Hamas war also. So that is there. The role of United Arab Emirates, if we see UAE, their policy is different from Qatar. Even though there is so much of geographical proximity, UAE, the Emirates, they are not having that much of conservative stance compared to the policies of Qatar. So they are more moderate in nature, and that is why I don't think that there is much role for the UAE. Except for that, yes, they can mediate the talks which can happen. All right, so we'll switch off the live section now, and I'll just take a break of around 10 to 15 minutes. And after that, for this entire week, I'll discuss all of the issues. All right, just the online live section will just switch off. All right, so the conclusions, India should try multiple ways, and we should keep ensuring that these people are returned back. And that's it. All right, okay. Thank you.